what are your three top pieces of advice for someone in the industry? That could be, that master student who's thinking PhD or start or found a startup. It could be somebody who's maybe at a crossroads as to what to do with their career. But what are your three pieces of advice?
Um, I think the first piece of advice is being adaptable. Everything is changing constantly, also within industries where we thought for years that it's found its semi way. If you're learning these skills, then you'll be good for the next 30 to 40 years. We can also see that within even a niche field such as snakebite diagnostics, right? People's opinions are changing quite drastically from year to year. The funding landscape is changing. Um, so being adaptable, I think, is one of the biggest strengths of not only if you want to build your a new company at some point, but also just taking on the challenge of joining a workforce and actually building your career through companies. We've seen it with ChatGPT, how that's completely revolutionized a lot of jobs. Maybe not as much within healthcare, but I can promise you that a lot of people working in healthcare who had jobs of writing a lot that was not maybe within the regulatory space, I can bet you they they are taking advantages of these tools, right? So being adaptable, I think, is very important. The second one is have an appetite for risk. Um, so being willing to basically take risks when an opportunity arises. For me, that was basically saying yes to going full time into Venomate, despite an opportunity as a PhD was also around the corner. That would have been a much more safe bet for those 3 years that the PhD would have taken me. But going into Venomate, not knowing what would happen, 1 year down the line, having that appetite for risk, and especially for the younger audience, I think they have the best opportunity to also take that risk, especially just when exiting university, because the opportunity risk, the opportunity cost is much lower. Imagine having a well-paid job in the industry and then saying, "Oh, I'm going to start my own company." It's a pretty big gap in
Yeah.
monthly wage you're going from, compared to a student going directly from studies and saying, "Hey, I'm going to try this out." So yeah, an appetite for risk. And then I think finally, third piece of advice: accept the fact that luck exists. This is also about being lucky a lot of the time, but as a lot of people have said before, luck favors the prepared, and there's a lot of things you can do to be prepared. Um, One of my mentors usually says to me that you should front load. So when you have tasks on your to-do list, always leave up some spare time in the end instead of procrastinating and pushing everything to that deadline. I'm not very good at practicing that, so I'm not going to preach too much about that. I just know from the people in my network who are actually excelling at sort of front loading, they already always have time for those low hanging fruit opportunities that present themselves, because they're not having to say no because they have this big assignment or this big task from the work that's hanging over their heads, where the deadline is tomorrow. They can basically take these low hanging fruits, and you can really see how those stack up over time. So be prepared, but also accept the fact that it's a game of luck a lot of the time.